They're the points that you want to keep hitting home in any conversation about abortion. Is the baby alive? Is the fetus, blob of cells, growth, tumor, whatever they are calling it, is that thing that we are trying to name, is it alive? And if they are having an honest conversation with you, then they will have to admit that it is alive because it is growing. If it is growing, it has to be alive. Nothing that is dead can grow. So once you establish that it's alive, then you just have to define it. Okay, if it's alive, then is it human? Is it a human being? That is what we are trying to establish. We've agreed that it's alive, and that's a very easy point to agree on, so you've built common ground there. Does it have human parents? And a lot of times people answer without thinking, and they go, well, yeah, of course. Because what other kind of parents would that fetus have? And then you've just made your two most important points. If it's alive and it has human parents, it must be human. Because two human parents cannot produce a child of any other species. Two human parents cannot produce a dolphin fetus. Two human parents cannot produce a rock. Two human parents cannot produce a bacteria. It doesn't make sense. So if you can establish these 2 points, that's something you guys can agree upon from the very beginning, and then you've built a foundation for the rest of your conversation. So, your pro-life toolbox. We talked about this yesterday. Who can remember what this is? Size. What's next? Good. Environment. Very good. So all of these are comparisons. Remember that when somebody brings up any of these points, it's just to somehow justify that a person compared to you along any of these points is somehow less valuable. Somehow the smaller person is less valuable than the bigger person. Somehow the infant is less valuable than the teenager. And we have people say that. That is where we are in our society right now. We are to the point where we are polarizing people such that they are starting to see there's no difference in the 9-month-old fetus and the 1-month-old infant, and people are saying, oh yeah, it's okay to kill someone up to 2 years old because it's the same thing. So at least we've got some consistency. All right. So all of these points are comparisons. Environment. This is probably one of the most difficult because what the most traditional example for environment is to say, okay, the baby, they say, well, it's inside the baby's inside the mother, so it can't be human or it can't be valuable or we have the right to kill it or whatever. And just because the baby's inside obviously doesn't mean it's somehow less human. But the traditional example is to say, okay, I'm inside this building, and if I walk outside this building, does that change my humanity? And people are like, well, that's completely different because this is a building. There's like no way you can compare a uterus to a building. And that's really hard for people to grasp. That is, the comparison does work, but I have a teammate that will also use the comparison of like the first week of pregnancy when the baby is not inside the uterus, or even artificial insemination when the baby is conceived outside of the body, even though I know there are like some moral issues with that depending on where we're coming from faith-wise. The baby does exist outside of the mom's body. The environment, the baby's life is not dependent on the environment at that point. So you can say there are some cases in which the baby is alive and growing and not inside of the uterus. Okay, and whenever we address any of these points, because let me tell you, after 2 days of activism, you will see that they come back over and 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 over again. People always get back to the size of the baby. People always get back to the dependency of the baby. They always backslide and say that it's not a human. You end up going in circles the whole entire day. Remember that we are doing this for the glory of God, and remember to speak in love, because it's really easy to lose your patience at the end of 5 hours of activism when you've been talking to people all day and you've gotten nowhere. Because a lot of times when you've changed people's minds, they won't admit it to you. Their pride will prevent them from admitting to you that you have changed their minds, and they have to go home and think about it and digest it for a while. So remember to always speak the truth in love. And every person you talk to is a different new human being. they're not going to know the conversation you just had with the last person. So you have to be loving and brand new and fresh to every single human being that you talk to, and be loving to every single one. Now, by loving, I don't mean you have to be buddy-buddy and be their best friend and give them a hug. We need to be honest and be genuine. Because Christ spoke in love all the time, right? And he wasn't always like mushy-gushy. In fact, I would say find a gospel passage when he was mushy-gushy. He was sincere and stern and clear, but he did always love the people he was talking with. Okay, so a little consolation. Graphic images. We will be hated for the use of graphic images, but I assure you it is not just because we use graphic images. I really love this story because it totally opened my eyes. A couple years ago, we were on a college campus in Virginia, and one of my teammates decided to host a little experiment, a social experiment. And our boards are set up such that we have a graphic image on one side and information on the other. And so we can like spin them around in the midst of a conversation and show people like fetal development on one side and the explanation of the abortion procedure on one side and arguments and stuff. And then we can spin it around and point to the graphic image, and we can use it for dialogue. But he decided to not use the graphic image for an entire day and just use the information. He didn't tell me first, so I was kind of like, dude, we've been doing this for 2 months. You know how this goes. What are you doing? He's like, no worries, Kristina. I'm doing a social experiment. I was like, oh my gosh. Tell me how that goes. I'm walking away right now. Because we were being pushed off the campus. We were being asked to leave the campus because we were using graphic images. And he said, I don't think it's because we're using graphic images. I think we would be just as polarizing if we were exposing the truth about abortion by any other means. So for an entire day, he used just the information side of the boards. He didn't show anybody a graphic image. And people were still as angry. He said he had a woman come up to him and say, I need you to leave the campus. I want you to leave. I don't want you here. Oops, sorry. And he asked why. I'm not showing anything graphic. And she said, it doesn't matter what you're showing. It's because you're pro-life. So remember, when we are persecuted, when we are yelled at, when people are yelling things at us that may not be nice or inappropriate, it's not just because we're showing them a gruesome image. It's because we're sharing the truth. It's because we are doing our duty as Christians. Okay, second part. He said, what? Every day after campus, the team gets in the van and we talk about the craziest conversations that we had, because every day we get somebody that says something and we're like, for real? That's what you think? Do you know what just came out of your mouth? And we don't say that to them, of course, except for sometimes. And I try not to do that too often. But we get a lot of off-topic questions. And here's the thing with off-topic questions or random comments or statements that don't make any sense. Most of the time, they are trying to derail you. They are trying to take you off focus, get your mind off of abortion, somehow get you to stop talking about abortion so that they can distract you or they don't have to think about it. I think it's really important for us to realize, who was saying this? Cheryl was saying yesterday that statistically, every one of us will know somebody that's affected by abortion, especially if we're on the street. Every adult in America somehow has been affected by abortion, whether it's a family member or a friend. They may not know it. And we have been affected by abortion in a very direct way because we were targeted for abortion by our very age. Because we were born after 1973, there was a business that wanted to kill us for money. So chances are, in a day's worth of activism, you will have talked to somebody that has had an abortion or that has been affected by abortion or participated in an abortion. And they don't want to think about it. They don't want to think about the fact that you are bringing up this horrible part of their history. They don't want to think about the fact that they may have done something wrong and now they have to grapple with it. And a lot of people that we talk to, we know, are being promiscuous. They're engaging in dangerous sexual activity that could be unhealthy or is out of wedlock and is immoral. And they don't want to be confronted with the fact that they may, in fact, have to change the way they are living. They don't want to be confronted with the fact that perhaps they have done something wrong and that they may have to live with the guilt of that decision. and they don't want to live with the fact that they may need to change their lifestyle, and they may need to stop some things that they may be addicted to or maybe really like doing. So this really scares them. It's part of our humanity, it's part of pride. And so they're going to do everything they can to not think about it, which may include distracting you or getting you to change the subject. So here are your off-topic questions, and I'll go over a little bit how to address them. So the solution to off-topic questions, whatever off-topic question you get, whatever they throw your way, the easiest and most direct way to get the conversation back to abortion is to compare the preborn baby to a born human being. This is going to be your greatest tool, the comparison, because they can't argue with it. You are making a legitimate comparison to two human beings. Just ask them, what is the difference? What is the difference between the baby in the womb and the baby outside of the womb? Any of the off-topic questions can be brought back on point by asking, okay, well, would you do this to a 2-year-old? Does that legitimize killing 3-year-olds? Does that legitimize killing 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds? And they'll say, of course, no. So ask them, what is the difference then? If you wouldn't kill a 3-year-old in this situation, then what is the difference between the preborn human being and the 3-year-old? And you'll get back to SLED and establishing the humanity of the baby, and that's how you get back on topic. Remember that our topic is abortion. Our topic is not, while they may be related via the culture of death, our topic is not the death penalty, it's not war, it's not homosexual marriage, it's not what do you think about Obama, and about all those things, every one of us could give a mouthful. We could have just as long of a conversation about any of those other things. But our mission is ending abortion. And so we need to stay on topic. For other people to stay on topic and become polarized and change their minds about abortion, we need to stay on topic and keep them thinking about abortion. So always bring the conversation back to, what do you think about abortion? And when people ask you crazy questions like, did you see that movie? Did you see this? Or, hey, what do you think about this? Or, hey, where did you get that scarf? Remember, the conversation is about abortion. And you can say, I would be happy to talk about that later. I'll give you my email address. But right now I'd really like to talk about abortion. So, biggest off-topic question we get is in really big letters because we get it all the time. The first question people will ask is, what about rape? And this question is legitimate because it is the question on everybody's minds. It is the out. Abortion must be okay in this circumstance. So, one, they are testing your compassion. People want to see if you care about the mother. People want to see if you care about women and if you care about rape victims. And if we are consistent, then obviously we do. But we don't want to tell people that's a stupid question. We tell them, one, that we care about the rape victim. She needs help. Abortion will never help her. It will never unrape her. It will never make the rape go away. It will never make the trauma of the rape go away. It will add trauma to her because abortion is a traumatic procedure. But secondly, and most importantly, does the rape make the child somehow not human? No? No. Is the child less human for being conceived in rape? No. And you can establish, okay, is the baby still human? Yes. Okay. So does that mean it's okay to kill it? And then they have to grapple with the fact that the baby is still human even though it was conceived in rape. Next off-topic question. Overpopulation is the second most common objection that we get. But the world's so overpopulated, we won't be able to have all those kids. And there are a couple ways to go at this. One, okay, let's give that to you. Let's say the world is overpopulated. Does that mean it's okay to kill those extra people? Why don't we kill the old people? Because they will make more room and they're a drain on our resources. And new people will be a better resource for us because they'll enter the workforce while these old people have already exited the workforce. And they'll say, no. Or you can say, you know what, India's pretty crowded. Let's just go into India and shoot every 4th person. That'll free up some room. And they'll go, no, that's crazy. And then ask them, okay, well, what's the difference between the preborn baby and the adult baby? Or even the toddlers? What is the difference? Why are we saying it's okay to kill babies in the womb in order to to make room for everybody else. So that would be the quickest way to overcome the overpopulation objection. If you have time, then you can talk about overpopulation. Ask them if they've driven from California to New Mexico and seen all of the land that's available for everybody to live on. And then you can send them to pop.org. I have a little bit of time. I'll see if I can play this video. Oh, my mom's mute.
2011, the Earth will hold 7 billion people on its surface, more people than any point in recorded history. While some welcome this latest member of humanity with excitement, others with fear. When people hear that we've been adding 1 billion people every 15 years, they imagine humanity's growth to look something like this. But 1 billion people isn't as high a percentage of humanity as it used to be. For instance, imagine this roller coaster car represents 1 billion people. If we add another car, or 1 billion more people, our train has doubled in length. But if we want to double the train again, we can't just add 1 more train car. We'd have to add 2. Every time we make the train longer, 1 train car represents a smaller and smaller percentage of the train. If it takes 15 years to add each new train car, then mathematically speaking, the growth rate is slower. In order for the growth rate to stay constant, the train would have to keep doubling every 15 years instead of just adding 1 car. Human population growth is the same way. In 1804, the world's population hit 1 billion. By 1927, that number had doubled. But by 1960, that number had only grown by half. By 1975, it was only growing by a third, and then a fourth, and then a fifth. To see how population growth is slowing down, we look at a number called the global total fertility rate, which is the average number of children each woman has had. And over the last 40 years, that rate has been rapidly falling. According to the UN's current data, the world's population is due to peak in 25 years. After it peaks, it will start to go down. By the end of the century, we'll be losing 1 billion people every 20 years. This year, the world's population will hit 7 billion. In 75 years, we'll be back here again. Think about it.
All right, so that video is from an organization called POP.org, Population Research Institute, which was founded by Steve Mosher. I highly recommend going to their websites. They have a lot of other cool videos, but their research is really compelling. This idea that we are overpopulated, that somehow we have too many humans and not enough food to feed them or land to house them, really diminishes the value of humanity. In Genesis, God said, I give you dominion over the earth. The earth is not more valuable than we are. Human life is the most valuable resource we have. And if people can be convinced that that resource is expendable, then really nothing else matters. Okay, next most common question we get. Life of the mother. But what if the mother's life is in danger? And I think Cheryl went over this, but I know I did a little bit too. There is no medical circumstance. Gynecologists and obstetricians have testified to this. There is no medical circumstance in which an abortion will heal the mother, in which an abortion will be